Today I'm going to show you what's inside of this Ford EcoBoost V6 engine and how it works. Now this is a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged engine out of a 2018 Ford Explorer with 150,000 kilometers on it. Apparently it's got some oil burning and variable valve timing issues. So we're going to tear this engine down because we know these engines fail a lot and discuss some of the main failure points. Now, if you think an Audi engine is bad with having the timing chains on the back of the engine, this one's got it up at the front, but it's right up against the passenger side frame rail. So doing any timing work on this is definitely backbreaking. But at least you don't have to pull the engine or transmission off. Now the most notorious thing to go on these are the water pumps, which is underneath this timing chain cover. Surprisingly, we've got an aluminum air intake, which comes in down the middle, and the turbochargers live off to the side here. It's also a plastic valve cover. Now remember, this is transversely mounted with the radiator up at the front here. We have our direct injection pump, and we have our drive-by-wire throttle body. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of ducting coming from all the turbochargers going through the intercoolers into the air intake system, but luckily it's all been removed for me. I'm going to start at the air intake here. That just pops off. And now I'm going to pull this intake off. Alright, it's nice that it's made of metal. However, my first gripe here is that we've got the thermostat that lives back here and coolant passages coming in through here that mix with the same interface as the air passage. Now, the GM's got good experience with this, where the 3800 engines would mix the coolant into the air intake as well as the oil. Nevertheless, at least we have a mechanical thermostat, and that's because this is the older version of this engine. There's also regular coolant lines in this. It doesn't use the newer crimp style. Now, it's interesting that they've got a coolant bypass that runs through the middle here, goes all the way through this way, and then we've got this piece here that hooks up to another coolant bypass that runs along the length of the block to the front. Now this engine is direct injection only, and things are not looking good for those valves. It's really carved up inside of there. That's the thing with direct injection. You've got this low pressure hose here that brings in gasoline from the tank. It's then going to get pressurized by this pump here, which is driven off of the intake camshaft on this side, and then be sent down to these two fuel rails running along the length here to inject fuel directly into the combustion chamber, bypassing the airstream behind the valves. Therefore, the PCV system is allowed to clog up those valves. Then eventually you're going to have to take this whole thing apart and use your wife's toothbrush and scrub it all out. See these hoses for gasoline? Not good, because they've crimped them here, and sometimes these crimps can split and fail. A lot of the newer Fords are using more of these crimps, and they're splitting and failing in the cooling system. Just gonna knock this off here. The T45. Then I can remove the high pressure fuel pump. You can see we've got a giant spring, and inside of here there's a lobe that's going to keep pushing up on this spring, and that's going to create that fuel pressure, and this is of course your fuel pressure regulator. Knock these guys loose here. Let's remove the valve cover next. And here's what it looks like under the valve cover of this engine. Now the valve cover on these are known to crack after a while. Not very strong design. Here you can see the frame for where the direct injection pump would sit. Now the camshafts themselves are actually a very simple design. There's no variable valve lift on here. It's a very simple cam on bucket design. There's no roller rocker arm system. Condition is actually pretty clean under here for 150,000 kilometers. It's about the end of the life for these Ford engines until you got to open them up and do some main work on them. The variable valve timing is only on the intake side. There's nothing on the exhaust side, and that's because this engine is turbocharged. This is the single oil control solenoid that's going to control this one over here. Let's remove this direct injection block. And that's the lobe that would press up against the direct injection pump. Now I'm going to remove all the cam caps. I mean, some of the cam caps don't have that many lines, so I'm not seeing an oiling failure just yet. These two cam cap bolts are stripping out. I've even tried using an E-Torx on here, so I'm just going to have to cut them off. You just over tighten them, and those are very easy to strip out, so beware if you're tearing down one of these. Before we pop the valve cover, let me just get this bracket out of the way. I like that they give you these brackets because it's easy for me to unload this from my trailer when I'm doing teardowns. Take off the rear valve cover. Let's get these coils off of here. These are original Fords. What's up with you guys not giving pry points, man? There's nothing for me to pry on. Again, another plastic valve cover. Alright, story's the same on this side. Everything's very simple design, very clean, just like the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these cam caps. Hopefully they don't strip any. I guess this engine used to work at the strip club before, because I've stripped 4 of them. Let's get this chain tensioner off. This is the oil control valve. Doesn't look clogged to me, to be honest. Next we're going to work on the front of the engine. Now luckily I've already cracked the crank bolt loose before I put it on the engine stand, so this should just... These are press fit. Next up I'm going to remove all the 13s and the 15s holding this timing cover up. Alright, I'm going to see if I can pry off this timing cover. It's okay. Alrighty, so here's a look under the timing cover of this EcoBoost V6 engine. One thing right away I like is that there's no oil galleys running through here for tensioners, there's no coolant galleys, no water pump connection, nothing. It's just one plain cover that's going to seal all the way around. And here we have a look at the timing chain setup on this EcoBoost 3.5 liter engine. I'm actually quite amazed because there's only one timing chain to power a V6 engine. They're not even separated with the oil pump. It's actually powered directly by the crankshaft. Essentially the chain starts at the crank. We've got a timing chain tensioner that's hydraulically powered, goes to the intake side over here. There is a secondary chain on the back here that drives the exhaust side. Same thing on this head over here. And then the chain spins the water pump in the middle. The water pump is really the key here because that's the main culprit of all these engines failing. So I'm going to start by removing this variable valve actuator assembly here. Now this just pops out. It's essentially a housing for the variable valve timing, and that's going to send the fluid directly into the middle of this camshaft actuator. Knock off this one as well. This is where the video starts to get a little oily. I'm going to knock off these T55s that hold these cam gears on. Okay, so we have our camshafts off. I'm going to remove this timing chain tensioner. Alright, so I got to note that the timing chain actuator was extended quite a bit, but not all the way. I'm going to remove all the chain slides. These are made of plastic, which kind of feels flimsy. This is the slide from the top with the back chain over here. This is actually hydraulically powered as well. You can see the oil galleys running in here. Here's the chain slide from the other one. Let's take off this chain slide here. Made of plastic. I don't usually like that. This one's also made of plastic. I mean, it's a little bit heftier than like the German cars or like a 4-cylinder Hyundai or something, but it's still plastic. It still feels cheap that it can actually break. Let's pull this guy off here. This is actually quite a chunky chain. It feels pretty heavy, and that's because it's pretty long. It goes across both banks. No surprise though, chain stretch and chain wear is actually an issue on these. I mean, what isn't nowadays? Here is the variable valve timing actuator for the rear side here. Very simple oil controlled style. The newer style actually had the spring open where you could see it. That's an inferior design. Here's the one for the front bank, and you can see it's got a small chain that goes over to the exhaust side. It's just on bolts. Little slide here, plastic. Little slide here, also plastic. Here's the camshaft for the back on the intake side. Here's the front side, and you can see it's got that extra lobe here for the direct injection pump. And here we come to the biggest flaw of this EcoBoost engine, and that is this water pump. Now imagine tearing down this entire engine to this point here while it's still in the vehicle, and this is right up against the frame wheel because it's transversely mounted. Now these water pumps are known to fail, and boy do they leak. And when they leak, they're going to leak coolant inside of the timing chain cover, where coolant is going to mix with oil, which is bad. Now you're going to look at the oil and you're going to think that you have a head gasket leak or something, but it's actually coming from this water pump design. This is a terrible design, and it's only on the transverse engines and the Explorers and the Tauruses and Edge. On the longitudinally... Yes, Mustang. Now on the longitudinally mounted F-150s and Mustangs, the water pump hangs out on the side here where it's external. You don't have to worry about this kind of failure. Those have other failures, by the way. I'm going to remove all the eights holding this water pump on. See how all that coolant went right down into the oil pan? If this thing was leaking, that's exactly where all the coolant would go. Very simple design. This is a plastic impeller, however. You can see that the gasket around here is pretty crusty. This does say Ford on it, so I'm going to assume it's the original water pump. You can also see the gasketed surfaces here are also pretty crusty. Just wondering out loud here if I can remove the fuel rail without removing the heads. Okay, after a lot of prying, I got it free. That fuel rail is really packed in there, and you're supposed to disconnect this before taking it off, but you can't reach it if there's a big fuel rail in the way. Moreover, why is Ford using zip ties to hold this on? They should be using a proper clamp for the fuel injectors. Like, now how am I supposed to get the connectors out? They're buried in there. There we go. What a terrible design if you want to service that. Anyways, the direct injectors are down inside of here. Ford uses 8 mils like everybody else uses 10 mil sockets. Just take that out, it was blocking the head bolt. Same thing on this side. Cam position sensor. Head bolts on these are a 15mm socket. No fancy socket here. These are loose just like any other American. Here's the secret 8mm head bolt here. Wow, check out all the crust on the top of these pistons. This is all just carbon that's built up. That's not just because it's direct injection. It was an oil burner according to the previous owner. I'll pop off this head gasket here. Now this is the original head gasket. It is a 4-layer steel gasket. Now the fatal flaw that kills all these EcoBoost engines is this slit in between here. Essentially we've got an open deck design. We've got coolant all the way around trying to cool off these hot pistons. Because they're moving at very high compression, it's a turbocharged engine. Now adding this slit in between here, it allows coolant to move over to each side to aid with some cooling, but you've effectively divided your sealing surface here by 2, and eventually some of this coolant here is going to start seeping into the cylinder, and then you've essentially got a head gasket leak. You'll see some of that combustion pressure being fed into the cooling system, and maybe even oil and coolant mixing. And then you can imagine tearing this whole engine down inside of the car just to get a head gasket job done. Same thing on this side. There's a lot of carbon built up inside of these cylinders here, indicating an oil burning problem. Pull off the head gasket. You can see some of the surface here was starting to go. Perhaps the head gasket was about to blow next. Pretty sure this is not how you're supposed to do it, but that's the crossover tube that feeds the water pump. Finally got 2 10 mils. I'll just remove the NOx sensors, which luckily have their own harness on them. Alright, I'm going to carelessly turn this over. Allow the coolant to drain so we can work on the bottom half. Let's see if we can get this oil filter off. Let's get the whole housing off. Very simple, oil in, oil out. I'm very surprised that on a Ford Explorer there's no oil cooler on this, which would have an external piece. At least it's a spin-on style filter and not no cartridge style filter like Toyota is doing, for example. The oil pan is made of an aluminum alloy. I'm going to go ahead and remove all the 10s. Alright, just remove the oil pan there. Let's take a look inside. This engine is not that complicated like I thought a modern EcoBoost would be. The drain pan is very simple. The oil pan is a single piece pan. I know in the newer designs they've got 2-piece pan where there's a plastic part at the bottom. The condition of this pan is actually not bad. I don't really see too much sludge or any grums at the bottom. There's just a little bit of particles. This one's got the extra port crimped in here for the turbo drain line. But at least I like that there's no oil passages, oil cooler or filter hanging off the side here. There's nothing to leak. Another good thing Ford's done is that they've keyed the crankshaft. You can see there's actually a keyway here, and there's a pin here that locks it in. On the 4-cylinder EcoBoost, these are not locked, and it actually holds timing by just the tension that's on here. Get this oil pickup tube off. Very simple steel oil. Uh-oh, there's a broken piece of plastic in there from something. Uh-oh. It looks like something broke and got stuck in there. And there's more pieces in there. Oops, that looks like some timing components. Yeah, you gotta watch out if you change timing components to check the bottom end of this engine as well, because stuff could be stuck in there. Next up we've got this windage tray. Again, that's not made of plastic, it's made of metal. Now these bolts are part of the main cap bolts, that's why they're so tight. Pull off this tray. Nice and strong, made of metal. Looks like someone made a note there. I'll just crack these crank bearing free. What's nice is that this engine has also cross bolted into the mains, 13mm bolts, so I'm going to go ahead and break those free. Really like this design because it's driven straight off of the crankshaft as opposed to having a separate chain that has more failure modes. It's been a long time since I've used my 11mm socket, but that's what these connecting rod bolts are. See what this bearing looks like. Bearings actually look pretty good. 150,000, minor wear marks, but nothing indicated they ran it low on oil. I wonder why they make these connecting rod bearings red. Did I paint them so they can see clearance or something? Yeah, I also woke up the baby. Actually pretty clean, not bad. Alright, let's see this one here. Bearing saying, pretty good. Push out the connecting rod and pistons. No! Wow, that made a huge mess. Alright, so I ran and got all the clothing that I could get. Cotton's the best for soaking up oil and coolant and stuff. At least I'm outside and not in my garage this time. I knew it would land in this oil pan. Something just told me it would land in it. I'm gonna see if I can get these bearings off here. Pull those out. Of course, the bearings don't have any damage on them. This being a V6, there's only 4 main journals on here. Pull off this rear main seal here. It also houses the crank position sensor. Finally, I can pull off the crankshaft. Oh my gosh. Let's get this off of the stand. So now that we've taken this thing apart, let's take a quick look at how the EcoBoost lubrication system works, starting of course with the oil pump, which mounts right up to the crankshaft. We've got the oil pickup tube, which is going to suck oil from underneath. The oil pump is driven directly from the crankshaft, which is going to push that oil through the exit over here into the block. Now on the side of the block here, we've got that oil filter, which is going to send that filtered oil back through this port over here up to feed the right side head, and then across this oil galley to feed the timing chain tensioner. Now teeing off of that, right down the middle of the block here, we have an oil galley running the length of the block, and that's where all of the crankshaft bearings are going to tap into to get lubrication for the connecting rods. One thing I really like is that there's no interfaces where oil could lose pressure and leak out of. So for example, the timing chain cover that's got an oil pump on it, there's none of that. It's all kind of integrated in one casting of the block. Let's take this oil pump apart real quick if none of these screws strip. Let's pull this apart. And you can see it's a gear style oil pump. These two ears here kind of teeth onto the crankshaft, and as this rotates here, you can see oil is going to flow in here from the oil pickup. It's going to get squeezed in between here and sent to the output over on this side. Taking a look at the pistons now, yeah, they do feel pretty chunky. I mean, this engine's got north of 300 horsepower and it is turbocharged. However, the story is the same for many gasoline direct injections, and that's these oil control rings here starting to clog up. That corrugated section is supposed to scrape the oil as this piston is going down and allow oil to enter down inside of here so it goes back into the sump. Instead, it ends up back on top here, and all this crusty stuff you see here is really all the carbon from the oil burning that this engine had. So in conclusion, this engine didn't really fail per se, it just kind of wore out on itself, and that's because of the efforts of modern technology such as direct injection and using thinner and thinner oils with smaller oil control rings to reduce friction at the expense of rebuilding your engine only 7 or 8 years down the road. Alright, taking a look under the engine head, and things are no different. There's a lot of crust built up even on the spark plugs as well as on the cylinder head here. Lots of carbon inside of here, definitely burning oil. Here's where you can see the direct injectors kind of poke up from the bottom there, spark plug in the middle. Note that the pistons do have a different shape to the head because it has to propagate that flame, and that's due to direct injection. Now I really like how they've used a bucket design for the camshaft to press down on as opposed to having a roller rocker arm system. And the only thing with this is that if the engine really wears down after a very high mileage, you will have to replace these or shim them to do a valve adjustment. And of course, with direct injection, carbon buildup is a big issue, so let's remove these valves and take a look. Always gotta love my valve removal tool. Take them out. Check out the amount of carbon built up in the back of these valves. It's just flaked on there. Sometimes it's not easy to get off. Even a solution that you soak in there overnight probably wouldn't be able to get it off. And the real way to clean this would be to use a walnut blaster to blast all of them off mechanically. You see, because the gasoline's not washing these off, over time the carbon builds up and it basically chokes out your engine. You don't have much airflow inside of here, and then it starts to run really rough. So eventually you're going to have to tear half the engine down just to clean these off. Variable valve timing system feeds off of this galley here for the oil in order to phase the cams. I really find it interesting that they're using rubber seals to go inside of the cam phaser. Anyways, if you want to learn more about VVT, I've got a video linked above. Now as you can see, for a modern engine, this engine is actually pretty simple and straightforward and looks more or less durable. It's really those add-on things like turbochargers, the plastic coolant hoses, plastic valve covers that crack, and of course water pumps like this that leak into the oiling system. Not to mention, this engine is transversely mounted, so this timing cover faces the passenger side rail, making this engine very difficult to work on. As a result, these are not very high mileage engines. If you're looking for one of these, pairs are not going to be very cheap, and once you're in there, you're going to probably have to replace a whole bunch of other stuff. Now if you enjoyed this video, make sure you support me on Patreon and subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one.